She read the message 3 times before her mind accepted the timestamp. Sent at 3:42 a.m. 2 years ago. Somehow it had resurfaced, pushed to the top of her inbox by a system update or a glitch she didn't understand. The words were simple, almost careful. I don't know if I should send this, but I miss you. No anger. No explanations. Just honesty that had arrived far past the moment it could change anything. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in her hands, remembering the night she never saw that message. Back then, she had been tired of waiting, tired of guessing what silence meant. She had moved on the practical way, new routines, new places, new people. She told herself closure didn't need words. Seeing the message now cracked something open she thought had healed quietly on its own. The memories returned not as pain, but as clarity. How often she had almost reached out. How often she convinced herself not to. The timing had always been wrong, or so she believed. Yet here it was, proof that something real had existed, even if it had never been spoken when it mattered. The message didn't demand a response. It didn't ask for forgiveness or another chance. It simply existed, suspended between past and present. She considered replying. Not to restart anything, not to undo years of distance, but to acknowledge the truth of that moment. After a long pause, she typed a short reply. I saw this now. I'm okay. I hope you are too. She didn't wait for an answer. Some messages aren't conversations. They're confirmations. Later, walking through the city, she felt lighter than expected. The message hadn't reopened a wound. It had closed one she didn't realize was still open. Timing hadn't been cruel. It had been honest. Sometimes things arrive too late to change the story, but right on time to finally let it rest. After sending the reply, she expected something. A rush of emotion, regret, relief, anything dramatic enough to justify how much space that old message had taken in her head. Nothing came. Instead, there was a quiet stillness, the kind that settles after a long internal argument finally ends. She went on with her day, answered emails, drank coffee that had gone cold, watched people move through the city with their usual urgency. Everything looked the same, but she felt slightly out of sync with it, like she was walking half a step behind her own thoughts. That evening, she took a longer route home on purpose. Streets she usually ignored suddenly felt familiar in a different way, as if memory had quietly rewritten them. She thought about how many decisions are shaped by timing rather than intention. How often people assume silence means indifference, when in reality it hides hesitation, fear, or exhaustion. That message had been real, even if it never reached her when it mattered. And that realization softened something inside her, not toward him, but toward herself. She had stopped blaming her past choices so harshly. Days passed without a response, and she didn't check her phone obsessively the way she once would have. The need for validation wasn't there anymore. Instead, she found herself reflecting on how much she had changed since that unread message was first sent. Back then, she needed certainty. She needed answers quickly, clearly, without ambiguity. Now, she understood that some things don't resolve cleanly, and that waiting for perfect timing often means missing honest moments entirely. One night, she opened the message again, not to reread the words, but to look at who she had been when she didn't see them. That version of herself had been doing the best she could with the information she had. She had moved forward not because she didn't care, but because standing still hurt more than letting go. Recognizing that brought a kind of forgiveness she hadn't known she was carrying. Eventually, a reply did come. Short, simple. He said he was glad she was okay. That he never expected an answer, but appreciated knowing the message had finally been seen. There was no attempt to reopen anything, no nostalgia dressed up as hope. Just two people acknowledging a shared past without trying to step back into it. She read it once and smiled. Not sadly, not longingly, but calmly. What stayed with her most wasn't the message itself, but what it taught her. That closure doesn't always arrive when a story ends. Sometimes it shows up years later, quietly, when you're finally ready to receive it without wanting anything in return. She stopped thinking of the message as something that came too late. It arrived exactly when it was meant to, not to change her life, but to confirm that she had lived it honestly. And with that understanding, she put the phone down, turned off the light, and slept deeply. Not because everything was resolved, but because she no longer needed it to be.